What's up, Richard Timmers here. Now, here is my throwback segment where I talk about the films that turns 10, 20, 30, and 40 this week. Alright, the film celebrating their 10th anniversary, we got some decent ones and some not so decent ones. First up, we got San Andreas. And no, this has nothing to do with Grand Theft Auto. San Andreas was, of course, the disaster movie where, like, an earthquake caused by the San Andreas fault devastated the west coast of the U.S. Of course, this is pretty much Dwayne Johnson battling an earthquake. And this movie was actually a lot of fun. You know, it was directed by Brad Payton, who also directed Dwayne Johnson again in Rampage. They actually have a really good, like, ongoing directing acting relationship there. Of course, you had the likes of Alexandra Daddario, Ian Griffith, Paul Giamatti. Some really decent cast members was in this. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it's what you get. You know, you got Dwayne Johnson battling an earthquake. So I wonder whatever happened to the sequel. Like, the movie did pretty well, and they were trying to get a sequel off the ground for quite some time. Who knows if we're ever going to get the sequel, but hey, San Andreas was still pretty fun to check out. So if you guys never seen it, definitely give that one a go. Alright, also turning 10 is Aloha. Oh boy. Now, Aloha, of course, was actually the last movie that Cameron Crowe directed. You know, he hasn't really directed another film since. Now, of course, Cameron Crowe is the director behind, like, Say Anything, Almost Famous, and and if you guys don't know much about Aloha, this movie, of course, starred Bradley Cooper as former U.S. Air Force officer Brian Gilchrist, who returned to Hawaii after being hired by a former boss to oversee the launch of a weapons satellite in the skies over Hawaii. Now, of course, you had the likes of Emma Stone, Rachel McAdams, Bill Murray, John Krasinski, Alec Baldwin, and okay, now I remember when this one came out in theirs. Like, I, of course, did saw it in theirs at time, and it had a couple of controversies surrounding it, because this was, of course, the film where, like, Emma Stone pretty much played an Asian, which, if you guys don't know, Emma Stone is not an Asian, so they pretty much whitewashed her. She was pretty much whitewashed here, so yeah, it was a little controversy at the time and all. And to be honest, it really wasn't so good. I mean, it's such a shame too, because Cameron Crowe has put out some great stuff. This and Elizabethtown is probably his worst films, in my opinion. Hopefully he'll make a comeback, but we'll see. Alright, now other films turning 10 are more smaller affairs. We got Heaven Knows What, which is a film directed by the Safdie brothers, starring Ariel Holmes, Caleb Landry Jones. And it's more like a young drug addict, roams the streets of New York to panhandle and get her fix, while her unstable boyfriend, played by Jones, drafts in and out of her life at random. It is a really decent film. Of course, this would actually be, the Safdie's last film until, like, obviously, until, A Good Time and Uncut Gems came around. Now they're mostly directing movies separately nowadays, so that's unfortunate. But Heaven Knows What was really intriguing. I think it actually scored a couple of Independent Spirit nominations, if I'm not mistaken. But really decent film there. Also turning 10, we got two films that has Haley Steinfeld in it. One of which is a Studio Ghibli film called When Marnie Was There, based on a book, featuring the U.S. voice talent, that is, of Haley Steinfeld, Karen Shipka, Vanessa Williams, Gina Davis. And it's about a young girl who is sent to the country for health reasons, where she meets an unlikely friend in form of Marnie, a young girl flowing with, blonde hair here, and of course there is, like, a friendship that unravels. Really decent, anime, worth giving a go. Really decent voice, like, U.S. voice talents here. Not a bad film there. And speaking of Haley Steinfeld, another film that Haley Steinfeld was in that turns 10 is Barely Lethal. Of course, this was directed by Colin Newman, who gave us the movie Fanboys. This stars Haley Steinfeld, Sam Jackson, Jessica Alba, Sophie Turner, Dove Cameron. And of course, it stars Haley Steinfeld as Agent 83, who's this teen intelligent agent who is, of course, earning for a normal adolescent who disappears and enrolls at like an exchange student in a suburban high school here. And Barely Lethal is a lot of fun. Of course, Haley Steinfeld was great here. Sophie Turner plays like the villain, if you will. She was pretty cool in this. Dove Cameron, Sam Jackson was really decent in this. It was of course released by A24 at the time. And it's not like A24's best work, nothing like that, but it definitely is a really fun one worth giving a go. Alright. Films turning 20 this week. Holy cow, I cannot believe these are 20. We got the very first Madagascar movie. Of course, this is probably my favorite DreamWorks movie that is not Shrek related. Of course, this is, it centers around like a group of animals from Central Park Zoo who pretty much find themselves stranded on an island in Madagascar and must adjust to living in the wild here. And of course, Madagascar obviously had a couple of sequels, a couple of spin-offs or whatever. Nothing beats the first film. It is a lot of fun. Of course, the iconic song of "Make Me Move It, Move It." Of course, you got voice talents of Ben Stiller, Chris Rock, Jada Pinkett Smith, David Schwimmer. Love the voice talents. Obviously, you also got Cedric the Entertainer was in this. Sacha Baron Cohen. I mean, what not to love about the original Madagascar? You probably remember the video game that came out for it too. I mean, definitely in my top 10 favorite like DreamWorks animation films of all time there. Alright. By the way, Chris Rock actually had not one but two films that week. Besides Madagascar, also turning 20 is The Longest Yard remake. I'm going to be unpopular to say this. I mean, the original Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds, which of course Burt Reynolds, appeared in this one. The original Burt Reynolds one is great. I might actually prefer the remake over the original. The Longest Yard, of course, starring Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, William Fichtner, James Cromwell, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Nelly. Of course, you got Adam Sandler, who plays like this washed-up former professional quarterback who in exchange for like a reduced prison sentence is forced to assemble a football team to play against the guards here. And The Longest Yard remake is a lot of fun. Of course, I think this was actually the first time like Adam Sandler and Chris Rock actually starred on screen together, if I'm not mistaken. And it is a really decent one worth giving a go. Some fun lines to it. It is a fun remake. I mean, yeah, I actually do prefer over the original. I mean, the original with Burt Reynolds is great, don't get me wrong, but I definitely have a soft spot for the remake a little more. Alright. Now, also turning 30 this week is Casper. Of course, the live-action Casper the Friendly Ghost movie, directed by Brad Silberling, who also will go on to direct Lemony Snicket's A Series of Fortunate Events. Of course, you got like Bill Pullman. You even got cameos by some of the Ghostbusters, like Dan Aykroyd and all. Of course, you had like very young Christina Ricci was in this. Now, of course, if you guys don't remember about the original Casper, and of course, where you got like a specialist James Harvey, played by Bill Pullman, arrives to communicate with Casper and his like fellow spirits, and he brings his teen daughter Kat, played by Christina Ricci, and of course, Casper quickly falls for Kat here, and their relationship is complicated and all. I mean, the original Casper, with Christina Ricci and Bill Pullman is a classic in my opinion. It is a childhood favorite of mine. I used to watch this thing tons of times on VHS. Like, who didn't love that Casper movie? Of course, they will go on to do sequels like Casper Meets Wendy with a very young Hilary Duff and all, but nothing beats that original Casper movie, and it's a lot of fun there. Alright. Also turning 30 is Mad Love, which is the romance film starring Chris O'Donnell, Drew Barrymore. Where of course Chris O'Donnell falls for Casey, played by Drew Barrymore. I find that Drew Barrymore literally played two characters named Casey that at the same time. You know, remember she also played a character named Casey Becker in the first Scream, and played a character named Casey in that. So I mean that should be pretty funny. Who's of course the new girl at school, and it is of course like a romance type film with of course you got Joan Allen, Jude Corselia, Matthew Lillard. You know, speaking of Scream, you also got Leah Schreiber. Of course, this actually came out like a year before Scream came out. You know, because Scream came out like I think that came out in 1996, if I'm not mistaken, and of course this came out like in 1995. So pretty much it was like a year before Scream, debuted. But Mad Love is a really nice little rom-com. You know, the chemistry between Chris O'Donnell and Drew Barrymore is really good. Very young Matthew Lillard. Really, this is a film worth giving a go. Alright, also turning 30 is Johnny Mcemonic, which is the action film starring of course starring like Keanu Reeves, who plays like Johnny, who's this like data carrier with an overlord brain implant designed to like secretly store like confident information. It's not so good. This is definitely one of my least favorite Keanu Reeves films. You know, obviously Keanu Reeves was still pretty popular at the time. You know, obviously this was before The Matrix came in and whatever. But yeah, this thing just isn't that memorable. It's definitely not a fan favorite of mine. Didn't really care for it too much, so yeah, it's not that good of a film. Alright, now only one film turns 40 this week, and that is Fletch. Now, of course, this is the film starring Chevy Chase, Tim Matheson, Gina Davis, the late Joe Don Baker, and of course, this is based on the Fletch books, which also got turned to another film. Of course, John Hamm starred in the Fletch remake, a few years back too. And this is, of course, revolves around LA reporter Owen and Fletcher, played by Chevy Chase, who is offered a large sum of money by a millionaire to take him out, and claiming he has like terminal cancer, prognosis. And of course, Fletch becomes suspicious when he discovers like the man cannot like. The man is not like ill, and he convinces to like continue his investigation here. And the original Fletch is a lot of fun. You know, of course, Chevy Chase is great. You know, obviously Chevy Chase was really popular at the time thanks to SNL fame and whatever. And obviously he also did Vacation at the time too. And Chevy Chase really plays his part very well. He definitely had some fun humor to it. It is an 80s classic if you guys never seen it. But that's pretty much it there. Let me to you guys, which of these films stand out to you the most? To me, the 10-year one is actually going to San Andreas. The 20-year one is, I'm actually going to go with Madagascar. 30-year one is, of course, Casper. And obviously, the 40-year one is Fletch. Anyway, drop comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. This is Tim.